and the player who wins goes forward until they lose. So for OD, we're going to be having,
Game
geez, there's
pause.
some difficult names here. Gamma
Game is
Secome,
Secom.
Gamma Secome,
Let's call him Red Terran.
Red Terran. Frieza, you want to help me out with pronunciation again? I do have a bio for him at least. He is a Taiwanese player, and he plays a very aggressive style. So we should be able to see some cool stuff coming out of him. So I guess that's with that. Without further ado,
Game resumed.
We'll jump right
well,
on in.
you just spelled his name. That's not
I guess if that's how you pronounce it.
Game is home. I'm saying okay. We're saying it right. Okay.
Okay, good. So in the upper left-hand corner of Belcher Vestige, the Blue Terran winning the last game with a pretty strong, aggressive push there. It is StarCraft Ascension B Team's Camker.
And in the bottom right-handed corner, representing Team OD, it is Game is home in the red Terran trunks.
So Belcher Vestige, we've seen some pretty both aggressive and macro plays on. The 2 base is pretty strong because it is a big-ish map, but not too big. And you know where your opponent is, so it's the scouting early isn't quite as necessary. But you know, you can see some pretty interesting builds in this map. I think everyone pretty much universally is okay with this map.
Yeah, it's a pretty neat map. You know, there's definitely some things that favor certain races than others. I'd say in terms of well, maybe not necessarily races, but definitely strategies with positioning of units and being able to fly in certain areas, things like that.
Yeah, it looks like Camker's going to be putting down a much faster barracks than Gamma's Secom, as he's putting his down as Camker's is about half done. But he did put down a gas first, so likely we'll see Reapers out of Gamma's Secom and Marines out of Camker would be my guess.
Camker now doing a little bit of a scout with his SCV, just trying to make sure there's no shenanigans in his natural, as that does happen from time to time.
Yeah, we have seen proxy Marines and proxy Reapers all in the last few weeks of the playoffs here, so the Terrans do like to keep their opponents guessing, I would say.
And why wouldn't you with the arsenal that Terran has at their disposal these days? There's definitely a lot of neat builds that you can do, and a lot of variation that you can do on those builds to be able to get some traction going and get the upper hand on your opponent.
This looks like factory going down right out the gates from Gamma's Secom, so likely a similar thing as we saw last time. It is going to be Marines, so that gas he's getting early is going to be used for that factory and starport tech to get possibly some mines or banshees. Since they reduced the cost of cloak, banshee play in the early game has become a little bit more prevalent, especially in TVT.
It has played out a little bit more frequently than we saw it before, and it is kind of a neat strategy. It can go really well if your opponent doesn't catch it. However, Camker, when he did scout that SCV, he did see that factory, so he knows that there is some fast teching going on over in Gamasek Home's camp. So we will see how he chooses to respond to that.
Looks like Camker's putting down a second command center right next to his main command center, so he's going to use this right away to just get an SCV lead.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
Absolutely not. And then once he feels safe, once he puts on a little bit of aggression possibly, then moves it out to his natural once he's got a good number of SCVs made. We have seen, I think we've seen Terran do that a lot more in the TVZ matchups because it's a lot harder to defend that natural expansion earlier in the game. But it looks like it is going to be Banshees because that factory builds a tech lab, lifts up, and saves it for the starport.
And we see that little building dance going on right now.
Out comes the instant Banshee, and Cloak will be soon to follow as soon as he has enough gas for it. Looks like he's a little behind in that gas count, but that will follow shortly. He does have a Marine moving around the map to scout things out a bit too, checking for those proxies as well, but if there was a proxy, there'd likely be some aggression by now.
One would hope.
There comes Cloak. Banshee's about half done, so that Cloak is going to finish after the second Banshee's complete. So the question will be, does he wait to move in till he has both of those with Cloak, or does he send the one right across the map?
Camker getting a starport of his own, and he's getting a second orbital command, and this is an interesting choice because I think that he has an idea that he's going to need some type of detection, but he's doing it in such a way that he can have more utility out of it once the aggression is over. So he's going to be able to continue to make mules out of this after he's done using them for scans.
Yeah, if we look at the unit count, Camker is actually one behind in SCVs so far. I'm not sure why that would be, because he did, well, I guess that orbital command finished and he did immediately turn it into a, that command center finished, he did immediately turn it into an orbital command, so that would probably be why. But that Banshee is going to be coming to cause some trouble here.
It does not yet have cloak though, so he could get some damage on it, and sure enough, he's getting some hits on with that Marine, or those Marines on the Banshee. It's about at half health.
Oh, he's getting some nice damage under those Hellions too. If he can get, oh, but a Viking comes out for Camker, that's going to shut this down, at least until cloak comes down, but he is going to have energy for scans.
That's right, and there the scan goes immediately as the cloak goes down, the Viking chasing the Banshee, but the Banshee exits the range of that scan.
We do see a Raven now coming out for Game2CTL, and Raven play is just awesome.
Well, both players are getting Ravens now, because Camker has one in production as well.
Yeah, we've seen some really cool stuff with that. Both, Widow Mines are now so prevalent since, mech isn't maybe as strong as some would like, and the Bio-Mine style is pretty common, so those Ravens offer a lot of utility, not just in detection, but those Hunter-Seeker missiles are just brutal.
They really can be if the other opponent is not getting his units out of there or getting good spreads or anything like that. But you do have to be careful as to what units you're tossing those down on. Obviously, the bigger targets are definitely something that are juicy, but they typically don't take as much damage as some of your more clumpy and lighter armored targets.
I almost feel like Hunter-Seeker missiles are more of a space control mechanism where, some people are like, oh, if it doesn't hit, it's like the end of the world. But if it doesn't hit, what it did is it forced them to move back.
That's right, and that can obviously give you some good field positioning. It can make their really good concave on your army seem less good, or reposition to give you that great concave. It can definitely serve to zone units in effective ways. You're absolutely right.
Did you see the same play coming out of Camker too? Maybe he sees that Game2CTL has gone Cloaked Banshees, so he's like, you know what, he's not going to expect out of me Cloaked Banshees.
And Camker is also putting down another command center, so he is aggressively expanding here. He's going to try and get that macro lead.
Look at these Hellions. There's 10 Hellions out for Camker now.
And those are good. I mean, those could be effective against these Marines. There's a fair number of Marines on the map.
Yeah, there are 3 tanks, though, at the front, so he's not going to be getting in there, that's for sure, unless he gets a medevac to do some drops with them, or if he comes down with an armory here eventually and can then turn them into Hellbats.
So double factory coming out of Camker now. Quadruple factory coming out of Camker. So this is definitely going to be a mech switch.
Yeah.
Or I guess it's not really a switch with 10 Hellions on the map.
Yeah, I don't think he's made, has he made any Marine? He does not have the Marine anymore, so the one Marine he made, he did lose at some point, probably scouting around. There's still a Banshee for Game2CTL hanging out to the lower left side of Camker's base, just waiting for an opportunity to move in there.
And so far, I mean, there's not really a lot of aggression going on right now. There's an early poke, but for the most part, both players are kind of just sitting back and building up their bases, building up their armies, kind of waiting for the other player to make a move. Both are kind of scouting around the map, just seeing what the lay of the land is, but neither is really putting on a lot of aggression.
Now, Game2CTL is going up to look for the third base of Camker. He's not going to see it, even though it is being built in the main, so he's going to fly us down to this location. Actually, he's got a barracks floating over there as well to make sure there's nothing hiding out down there.
It did walk into the range of the Banshee, and the Banshee decided to move into a location where it wouldn't be seen as well. And flying that barracks out there definitely, if you hadn't shown your hand yet, that's going to show your hand. Although that Marine at the tower is definitely seeing these giant army of Hellions and Banshees and Ravens, oh my, heading across the map. And sure enough, Game2CTL is now repositioning his tanks to have a more optimal position at the ramp, and these Banshees are going to move in and try and do what they can. He's got to get those Hellions out of there. They took heavy damage there. Oh, but now those Banshees are uncontestedly dealing with these tanks, and the Raven is coming forward, and he's got to be so careful with these Banshees if he wants to keep them.
Yeah, but losing 2 tanks out of 5 that's huge. So,
that is a big deal.
I mean, he could move up the ramp here now on the left side with those Hellions possibly. Oh, but a big load up coming from Game2CTL. So he realizes Camker made that push and is pushing back home now, so he's going to come out and try and exploit this.
And it looks like that Banshee's going to be heading back home in light of this drop coming in. And there's really not much up there. There's not a whole lot for Camker to do to defend against this.
Yeah, it looks like lots of upgrades coming out from Camker as well. Infernal Pre-Igniter just now starting, so he is wanting to get something done. I'm guessing it's going to be some Hellbat drops here now as he is producing those. He hasn't converted his Hellions into Hellbats yet, but if he can get a couple of those drops into the bases of Gamma Secom, those do insane damage now that Blue Flame affects Hellbats as well.
You know, I think that he's actually just going to be running up the gut with those, though. He doesn't have anything being... Well, now he has a single medevac producing out of that starport, but he's really not making a whole lot of those.
Gamma
But that drop
Secom
is hitting now, and that's huge damage. This whole SCV line is going down. There is nothing left. Even the gas drones, or SCVs, were not protected, and now he loads back up. Does leave a single Marine behind. Apparently, he does not believe in No Man Left Behind.
Absolutely, and that Banshee has 3 kills now, and those 3 kills are tanks. So as he was doing that drop at the natural, that Banshee, with no Marines nearby, no anti-air, was just picking off tanks.
So now Camker not looking in quite as strong a position as he was before. That is a huge SCV loss.
Does have a Viking somewhere. I mean, if he sent that, yeah, it's right here. If he sent that back, he could do some damage, if not take out those 2 medevacs. But
He could, but the question is, does he know where they are?
Oh, and they're coming back in. They're going to do another drop here. Right as Camker is moving back, and those Hellbats and Hellions with Blue Flame doing so much damage. Hunter Seeker missiles go down on the both medevacs.
And now there's another drop to the far right on the 3rd base that are just gearing up. Now they're boosting in. They're dropping right now. Camker, it seems like he had an idea that this was going to happen as he left some units behind, but it's just not enough to deal with all of this drop.
Gamma Secom really taking control of this game with the drops after that slight push by Camker that he didn't really want to commit to. Gamma Secom is like, let's get on the move and get out there because he is on the move. But now Gamma Secom even has a very large army moving out of the Naturals' base as they're going to meet in the middle of the map.
And at this point, it looks like we're going to have to see who gets the better tank positioning. If Camker sieges up here, this could be really good for him, and he is doing just that. Gamma Secom is deciding he's got to pull back as that position is not in his favor.
That was a smart play, though. He only sieged up a couple tanks, so he didn't have to commit to that positioning.
Another drop in the 3rd and in the natural. Or the Banshee's in the natural now. The Banshee doesn't get cleaned up by 2 Vikings, but that drop is still doing huge damage, and Camker's going to be forced to get his 3rd base out of there.
Marauder's stimming up into the natural as well, taking out a couple tanks even. Gamma Secom is really putting a noose on Camker right now.
Camker is trying to push up the front, and he's doing a very good job as only tanks remain, and the Hellbats are running forward, tanks behind supporting, and all these tanks are going to get cleaned up. So this is looking like it's going to turn into kind of a base race.
Yeah, and you know, Camker I think is the only one with Vikings, so in a base race, Vikings can be pretty good, especially once those buildings lift off. Oh, those Hellbats on all the SCVs coming down the ramp, bunching up, getting instantly killed by those Hellbats with Blue Flame.
But I mean, both armies are virtually uncontested. Camker losing a base, and now the medevacs are loading up, boosting. They're deciding they're going to go home as he feels like he has a strong lead, having cleaned up 2 bases, and now just needs to protect what he has at home, and he'll be doing very well.
Oh, the Vikings of Camker have found the medevacs too. Oh, a couple Marines stim up, do take out the Vikings. Oh, that's such a huge play, but they're going to be dropped on top of these tanks, which is going to render them useless. Tanks doing damage to each other.
And Camker basically only has tanks now. I mean, he's got a single Hellbat in the base of Camker, and he's just trying to destroy as much infrastructure as he can while he can.
Camker's really smart here to have only one of his tanks siege and all the rest unsiege, because he does see that Gamma Secom is going to be trying to be dropping on these tanks, but with them unsieged like that. Oh my gosh, but the 2 siege tanks in the middle do so much damage to the ones on the outside, and he actually cleans that up.
Yeah, I mean, dropping right on top of them with 2-1 Marines, that is definitely an effective play. So Camker's really got to pull a rabbit out of his hat now. He does have a decent-sized army at home, considering what he's on.
If we look at army supply, they're identical. 42 for each, and 23 and 25 on the worker supply. So we have an even game here right now, Gallegation, at least as far as numbers.
The difference is, though, that Game Home has 3 orbital commands as opposed to the 1 that Camker has.
That's correct. And the army compositions are completely different too. Gamma Secom has this very mobile bio composition with 3 medevacs. He's going to be dropping in the main, only 1 Hellion there.
And this is just going to be devastating for Kanker. His whole base is going to be obliterated by this. He doesn't have anything, and sure enough, he's lifting off everything. He's trying to get out of there with what he can.
The economy of Game2 home is going to be affected here too, as the third base is under siege by Kamker, moving in, killing all the SCVs. That is forced to lift as well.
So Kanker has to know in this situation that his only choice here is to just push and win with his army. If he doesn't, the game is almost certainly over.
Yeah, I mean, the army supply has now changed. I mean, Kamker only has 20 as he's moving into a siege line here from Game2 home. All he's got left is 3 tanks with some SCVs trying to repair as he moves up on these tanks. Oh, excellent micro by those medevacs, dropping the tanks right on top of the other ones. Fantastic play.
Oh, but the SCVs are repairing each other and not the tanks.
Oh, those Stim Marauders are doing so much damage to those tanks, able to take that out. No micro in the world could save that tank.
Kanker has landed his starport and has 4... Oh, there's the GG.
GG.
Game paused.
Wow, that was an intense game, Gallegation.
Definitely tense. Definitely tense. Both players had very aggressive armies, very scary armies in the right numbers. The difference being that Game2 home was able to have a very mobile army and was able to hit multiple fronts at the same time. Really able to do a lot of damage with minimal investment comparatively.
Absolutely, and the divergence of the army types from both players was interesting to see too. I mean, Game2 home was just so mobile compared to the slow siege army of Kamker. That was a huge factor.
Game
It
paused.
certainly